Give me a second.
Number module 13.
So this should be at the end of the slides. Yeah, it should be all the way at the end.
I didn't have that. No. I did actually the first half. No, first half I did
Okay, so today we will be talking about the test automation frameworks, specifically focused on the Ruby Cucumber technology test. So we'll talk a little briefly today what it is and how it works. We'll also talk about the agile development and test related practices. Okay, the framework that we are going to talk about applies to the agile development, the ATDD framework and ATDD process, and so forth. So I'll give you some idea about it, what it is, and how it works. And as I said, I mean, Ruby Cucumber is a focus today to get you some overview of the technology stack. Okay.
So you said ATDD?
Yeah, I'll go. We will go over that. Yeah, don't worry. We'll go over it. Okay. So at the end of this today's session, you will at least hopefully you will understand what is test automation framework. What is ATDD? Basically, what is that term? Basically, what is test-driven development? Okay, and what is the Ruby Cucumber test automation framework? Okay, so these four things.
So when you say Ruby Cucumber / Cucumber, it's the same thing, right?
No, they are different.
It says slash, okay.
Ruby / Cucumber / Watir / Selenium. So we'll talk about those four terminologies.
Actually, I have a question before we start.
Yeah.
Since we learned how to do the test cases at Catalan, so why that is called automation then? It's a codeless. So, so in the automation section, can we consider Catalan in there or no?
Yeah, it's a automation tool. Catalan is automation tool, just like Ruby Cucumber. But remember what I talked about, the money, right? Money part. Ruby Cucumber is free. That's why 50% of the companies, or more than 50%, they use this similar framework, Ruby Cucumber Watir Selenium, or Java Cucumber Watir Selenium. Okay.
But automation means, if you say automation, everybody think, okay, it's a coding part, but here there is no, it's a codeless.
No, in the Catalan, there is a coding component as well. It's built on Ruby programming language, right? But you don't know programming language. So we were using the record and play capability. But you don't have to use it. If you know Ruby programming, you can just build the test without anything.
Oh.
Because sometimes some scenarios you cannot do it with just a record and play. Some scenarios you will have to use programming at some point. Okay, but I said, I mean, 80 to 90% scenarios you can test cases. You can record it without programming knowledge, but some advanced things, yeah, you have to, because when there are pop-ups and everything else that comes into play, you have to handle with the programming, those things.
So if you're saying I know Catalan, that means you need to know the Ruby programming, right?
No, it's a codeless tool, right? So
both.
you can still say you know Catalan, you are not advanced level. You are more like a beginner to intermediate level. If you can build the test like what I give you for homework, they are beginner to intermediate level.
Okay.
So you cannot say I'm advanced level in the Catalan.
Okay.
So, yeah. Okay. So you will understand the difference as well, how it differs than the Catalan, right? Because you guys have some exposure to the Catalan. Okay. All right, so let's understand this process for automated software testing. I think we briefly touched on when we talked about Catalan, how this thing works. But again, definition wise, it doesn't change. It's you are trying to automate something, basically, whatever you are doing manually. That's what it is. Now, what we do when we say for the testing standpoint, right? So it's a process of execution of tests, and you are comparing the actual outcome with the predicted outcome, right? Essentially, that's what it boils down to when you talk about testing, whether you are doing manual or automation, right? But when you do automation, it's without human intervention. That's what the automated testing is, right? Essentially. So, and you typically achieved by the tool. You have to use certain things, and the automation's primary job is to simulate a real user. That's what we are doing, right? I mean, whatever you are doing manually, you are simulating using the tool. Same thing. Now, there are many technologies, which I think I briefly touched in the last week class as well. Now, when we talk about automation, what the things we were doing, or how the real user interacts, right, with the page. So you visually identify the page, identify the component that you want to do some action on, and basically perform some type of action on that page. So 99%, that's what we do. When we talk about any testing side of thing, right? You input some data, or you identify, hey, I want to click or submit something. So I want to find that button and click on it. Those are the two things you will do 99% of the time. Either click or type some certain things, right? That's what we do. I mean, when we say real user interacts with the page. And exactly that same thing happens basically when you are using the tool. Tool will also do the same thing. It will identify, hey, which control, HTML control that I'm trying to interact with, and then make some action on it. So when you say set text, right? So you have that control, input control, right? We are in the catalog. You have those keywords, those set text and those things, or click. That's what I think. If you look at it, your catalog test case, that's what happens basically, right? Again, automated testing tool, right? You simulate the same thing, whatever the real user is doing, and it's a playback and pre-recorded basically actions. You can do it, right? That's what we did, and compare results to the expected behavior. Essentially, same process, right? There is no magic here with the tool. Whatever you are doing manually, that's what happens. And finally, it has typically has a reporting capability, so you can get a nice report at the end, or within the tool, you can generate reports for them. So it saves you a lot of time, right? Ultimate goal is, can I execute the same test, find a test in maybe 1 hour? Yes, you can. You cannot do that manually, right? Those things. Okay. So I think I briefly touched on it last time, but I don't think I had this slide over there. And I'll get you this slide. I don't think you guys have this slide in yours. But first two are Watir and Selenium, right? Those are free, open source one. And I think, as I said, more than 50% of the companies here, and not just in the US, I think everywhere, they use Selenium mainly, and Watir is specifically for Ruby programming. Okay. But Selenium supports many programming languages like C#, Java, .NET, whatever, or Ruby, Python, and so forth. Watir is built on top of Selenium. So Selenium is there, but they created a Watir framework on top of Selenium. So, and Watir is, it says web application testing in Ruby. Okay, so that's specifically for Ruby programming. Okay, with that particular framework. So if the companies are using Ruby Cucumber, they are most likely using the Watir as well. Okay, because it's built on top of Selenium and works with that. As I said, I mean, there are a bunch of other tools here. As you can see, you have Microsoft Visual Studio. And I think I mentioned to you last time that a lot of government clients, they use VSTP. This is what we used to teach in the camp earlier. And if you guys are interested, I can get you the videos, but it may not work on Windows 11 machines. Windows 10, if you have it, then you can follow the step-by-step and play around with this tool.
So it's only for Windows 10?
Yeah, it works on Windows 10, with Windows 11, it doesn't work, this tool, the version that we have. Okay, I mean, they support Windows 11 in the real life, but our version does not work.
I have.
I have so please you can.
I'll point you to our download link and you can download, it's a trial version, 30-day trial, and you can work.
Yeah, I can study.
Okay, but again, follow the videos and you will be able to pick that up. It's very similar to what you did in Catalan.
Oh.
Okay, very similar record and play type of thing, and it's just a different tool. Same thing, the Smart Bear Test Complete is very similar to what you guys did with the UF2 Catalan. It's very similar. Okay, but Smart Bear Test Complete works with the various programming languages, VB script and all those things. UFT, right? It is a VB script only programming language. So Smart Bear supports VB script, JScript, C#, and all kind of scripting languages. So that they have a 30-day trial as well. Again, it works very similar, record and play type of thing, or you can do custom programming as well. So. Tosca, we used to teach earlier. Again, there is a lot of installation, so we stopped with that one. But I think I don't know whether I sent you guys video, but I can send you what it is because we have gone through that in earlier sessions. Okay, but this is a codeless automation tool, just like Catalan. Yeah. So you don't do any coding, zero coding with that one.
We have video of that.
Yeah, well, we have videos of the pre-recorded video.
Okay.
I may not have sent you, but I will send you
okay.
both UFT and Tosca. Okay,
Earlier this Tosca was very popular.
it's very expensive tool. Nationwide is very big, but then I have not seen any other company using Tosca in the Columbus area at least. Okay, because it's very expensive. Zero coding. Okay, zero coding. You don't write any code, single line of code in Tosca. Catalan has some like a groovy programming. You can. Tosca is more like a drag and drop type of thing.
So we are learning Ruby programming in the automation or not? I'm just questioning. I'm just asking.
Yes, that is the foundation. Programming is the foundation for the second camp that we have.
Okay,
Yes.
so, and,
Java is there. Yeah.
I mean, there are so many programming languages, right? But once you learn one programming, you can pick up other ones.
so it's a similar.
You will understand other ones. I mean, it's a syntax wise, that's where people struggle because they all expect different syntax.
And, I don't know this question I should ask. So do we need to learn, means know about this, not learn, know about this before we go to the market?
Again, everybody's background varies, so you may or may not, you might be okay. I have seen people are okay as well sometimes. If you learn it, that's a marketability thing, right?
Okay.
For your resume. But other than that, I mean, yeah. But you can still go. I mean, I have seen people getting into market without any programming knowledge, which is perfectly fine. So, but anyway, so I'll send you guys that video, right? And you guys watch it. Try send this one. Try to install, configure. It's a nice tool. I mean, it's very easy to use tool, but it's very expensive as well. At the
But
same
it's
time.
completely codeless, so then it's a good one.
Yeah, you need to think it that way. Do I target 50% of the companies or do I target
Yeah,
one company
yeah,
or what? So again,
Yeah.
more tools that you know, it's more helpful to you because you can easily pick up those things.
Yes.
Right. Now I have personally used most of them, except OPM. OPM, I'm not a guru on OPM, but it's an open source tool available for mobile testing and so forth. And it supports multiple programming languages. Okay, APM. Yeah, and Catalan is the one that you guys saw, right? And Catalan's market share, I think if you search on it, it says about 8% market share out of these tools. Catalan has it. So out of 100, 8 companies are using Catalan, basically. 50 companies are using probably Selenium or Watir, depending on the programming language. Then everybody else has 5%, 6% market share.
So recording is still.
Yes, I'm recording, plus I have recorded earlier sessions as well, so, but it should be good. It's already, I'm recording. Okay. All right, so let's talk about dive into what we want to cover today. Okay. So don't get all, I mean, think, oh, it's a big word and we don't know anything, okay? You guys know everything. And it's just a word, okay? They describe this process as a ATDD, that's all it is.
It's a definition.
It's a definition of the process they follow, okay? It's a collaborative practice. ATDD is a collaborative practice. Where, if you look at the definition, right, where developers, BAs, QAs, testers, whatever, they define automated acceptance criteria and acceptance tests. Okay. Very early in the application development process. Then they use the acceptance criteria and the acceptance test to guide the development. So what it is, there is a structured way of basically applying this process. Specifically, it applies in the Agile world. Again, in the Agile, what we talked about, everybody is sitting on the table, sitting with the customer, right? And capturing the requirements. Essentially, acceptance criteria becomes your requirement in the Agile world, or in the, yeah, technically they are the requirement. So when you write a user story will include acceptance criteria as part of the requirement. I think you saw in the Jira has acceptance criteria. I think maybe DevOps has acceptance criteria, right? So when you document the story, you will also define acceptance criteria at the same time. And there is a standard way of documenting the requirements in the Agile world and so forth. But again, this practice, collaborative practice, that's what is ATDD. Okay. Now, what it is, how do they create acceptance criteria, what it is, and what is acceptance test, I'll go over that next. But just understand it's a collaborative practice for now. So as I said, acceptance criteria, right? And then the second part is of that. Well, basically ATDD, this is it's more of a communication tool, right? That's what it is between developer, customer, and tester. Everybody is sitting together. Now you're gonna come across different terms for the same thing. So acceptance test driven development, that is one term. Second term is behavior driven development. Third term is specification by example, agile acceptance testing. All these things, again, it's an ATDD process. People will call it differently. Essentially, everybody sits together. They sit down with the customer, collect the requirements, they document the acceptance criteria, create acceptance tests, and then they will start development. So concept here is you create the test before you write the software code. That's essentially the concept in the Agile world. What you guys do normally, you write the test when you actually get the sign off requirement. Here in this process, you create the test, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, and why it's different. So the framework we are talking about, Ruby Cucumber one, right? It is used for ATDD type of process. So you create your acceptance test and then you automate that test as you build the software. Okay, it's a different concept. Earlier for Catalog, you have to have a software first. You have to go through manual process, manual testing, and then you will create the test on it. But here you're gonna start writing tests before you have a software. Okay, that's the biggest difference. I'm not going to, I think we all went through, right? So I'm not going to cover this part, Agile, but essentially Agile leverages ATDD process. Okay, that's the whole idea. Right, because here you are sitting with the customer, collecting the stories, requirements, all those things, and you are going through. So I'm not going to repeat the whole process unless anybody has any question. Okay. All right, so how do we collect the requirement or acceptance criteria? Again, requirement collection process doesn't change. You are sitting with the customer, you are taking the interviews, understanding the workflows, processes, all those things. But then how do you document? That's what the acceptance criteria comes into play. It specifies the requirement of a product or project must meet. So it is a requirement essentially. And what it says is when the acceptance criteria defined before the development starts, right? I mean, you have to have a requirement, then you can do development. But the focus is a little bit different, okay? It captures customers' intent rather than the development reality. So when we are talking about the normal requirement, right? Sometimes we put them mixed together design items as well, kind of like a laser saver document. You have a lot of design items also given to you and so forth. Again, those are waterfall type of documents. But this one will talk about the from customer intent only. What is my business process? And it stops there. Screen designs and everything, it will be done later on by the developers and the team. Okay. So it focuses on what needs to be done, not how needs to be, how it needs to be done. Okay. The design part, it will leave it out from the acceptance criteria. Let me show you the example so it makes sense to you what it looks like. So typically the three components, it has actor, verb, and observable result. Okay, so three component, actor, verb, and observable result, and it's written in the specific format. As an actor, I want to do something so that I can achieve certain result. It is written in this format. So acceptance criteria are, that's the format for acceptance criteria. So if you look at the example right below that, right? As a customer, I want to be able to create a user account or the user account so that I can get access to the system.
So after action, then what you're doing?
Observable results. Yeah, what is the outcome?
What the result?
Yeah, result. What is the outcome, right? As a customer, I want to sign up for a newsletter so that I can receive the latest updates. Now, think about the outflow requirements that you have. Does it say like who is doing the work, like actor? Well, sometimes it's not clear, right? In outflow requirements, because they are written very differently, not in this format.
Yeah.
Right? So this one is very easy to understand. Who is the actor, who does the work, what they want to accomplish, and what is the outcome supposed to be. So it's easier to understand, right? Imagine everybody sitting together on the table and you write the acceptance criteria this way.
Wow.
So everybody is clear, okay, who is doing the work. And so that developers need to design, they will start designing, okay, administrator need access, then they need to be able to create the account. So they need access to those modules and whatever, right? Again, benefits, team understanding on how the function or feature will work from customer standpoint. Removes ambiguity, right? Different people are not interpreting it differently. Everybody's on the same page. And limiting the developers to adding the functionality of the story requires. Now, this is important part. So it tells you as an administrator needs to do this task. So they're not going to build the functionality for dealer as well. It says limiting developers to adding the functionality only adding only the functionality of the user story required. So user story, you will create something like this. As an administrator, I want to be able to create user account. So developer will say, oh, this story applies only to administrator. So there will be a second story for a dealer if dealer wants to get the same function. So it will say, as a dealer, I want to be able to create new dealer user accounts or something, and so forth. So for every acceptance criteria, you will typically have a separate story as well. Okay. Essentially, it clarifies who is doing the work, and requirements is much more clear. Then there is no subject of interpretation, right? Everybody is on the same page.
So based on the format, so user stories should be different for.
Yeah. So for dealer user, if dealer wants to do the same work, then they will have separate story. So as a dealer, I want to be able to create user account so that I can grant access to the system. This story talks about only administrator. So when the developers are implementing it, they will only implement for administrator users. If there is a second story for dealer, they will take that story, pull that in the sprint, and they will start implementing the dealer related access.
So it's clear.
It's like a one
clear,
to one.
Yeah,
step,
yeah,
yeah.
one
to
Step by
one.
step by step, yeah.
Now, story might include multiple acceptance criteria.
Hmm.
So story might say, as an administrator, I want to do this. As a dealer, I want to do the same thing.
Oh.
Both acceptance criteria can be part of your story. Okay, there can be two requirements, but it will be clearly laid out in the story.
It will be more easier for developers.
Everybody, right? I mean, it's easier for everybody. Okay, these two people, we need to implement this functionality for this feature, for this user account. So it's sort of giving you a table of
Yeah.
that thing. I mean, and giving you different things for in different sections. You go to one story and implement this functionality.
That's a little bit, I don't know, I'm clear enough.
Sure.
So one user story, two persons can work on it, like administrator can work on that.
Right.
And developer can, maybe user can, you're saying like that, right?
I didn't get your
One
question.
user story and different.
Two acceptance criteria. One user story, but you will have two acceptance criteria. One says as an administrator, I want to be able to create user account.
Uh-huh.
Second acceptance criteria, you can list out multiple acceptance criteria. Well, second one will say as a dealer, I want to be able to create user account so that I can grant access to the user. If you are giving to the RFREP, right? Third acceptance criteria will be as a RFREP user, I want to be able to create user account so that I can grant access to the system. Again, it goes back to the requirement, but what I'm trying to say is your user story can include multiple acceptance criteria as part of the story.
Oh, okay.
So Harshan, I have a question.
Yes, Julie.
So the system requirements are broken down into user stories. Is that
Yes.
what I
That is-
understand?
Yep.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And that's part of the agile process, right? So generally you will have multiple user stories, kind of like what we did in our flow in the DevOps or Jira, right? And each story will include multiple acceptance criteria generally. Something similar to what we have. Now stories will have more stuff depending on the processes or who is writing the story. You might document the screens, you might have additional business rules, and all kind of stuff. But acceptance criteria, this is what business will accept when you implement the story. This is the functionality they are targeting. That's what the acceptance criteria is about.
So can that also be a test case too?
Yes, so we'll talk about test case. How do we come up with the test case?
Yeah.
How do you actually test these things? That's where the acceptance test comes in the picture. Okay, so this process is happening while you are sitting on the table, you are documenting. Generally, the BA is responsible for coming up with the acceptance criteria, but you are also on the same table, sitting with the customer. Now, as a team, they will also come up with the acceptance test. What it means when you say, as an administrator, I want to be able to create user account. How do you test this? They will ask customer. And then they will write, BA is responsible for acceptance criteria. QA is typically responsible for acceptance test. Okay, they will document it, but it's a team that's doing the work. Okay, and I will talk next, what it looks like, acceptance test. Okay. All right, so acceptance test, again, this is based on the acceptance criteria that we just defined. So your acceptance test should focus on testing the acceptance criteria. Again, fundamental doesn't change. Some expect a result from the system. You are testing basically with the same intent. Now, customers are responsible for verifying the correctness of acceptance tests. Remember what I said is you are responsible for documenting it, but you have to verify with customer, hey, does it make sense? Is that what you mean when you said as a customer, I want to be able to do certain things. So I have came up with 5 tests to test this thing, this particular acceptance criteria. Okay. But generally, so customer will verify it, they will typically approve it. Yep, it looks good. they can become part of your regression test as you move forward with the development process, but that's the beginning of your automation as well. Okay, this acceptance test that you are creating that could feed into your automation steps. And I'll show you how it works with the automation as well. Because we are talking about automation, right? Ruby Cucumber framework, where does it apply and how it works. But you need to understand this concept before you actually understand that. Okay. Now, there is a specific format, just like acceptance criteria, you have specific format to write acceptance tests. It's very straightforward. Given, when, then, that's those are the three things. Again, there are a lot of variations to that. And when you start automating them, there is a lot of variation comes into play. But this is the typical way of writing the acceptance test. Given, what it says, given typically is a precondition. Okay, what is my precondition? When, what is my actor, who is doing the work, plus what action they are doing, what is the outcome? So you take this example of as an administrator, and you come up with the acceptance test to test that particular acceptance category. Okay, in this format, given, when, then. Let's take a look at example, so it makes sense, right? Okay, so again, same principle applies, independent, right? Your test is independent, self-explanatory, focused on a single thing, right? Those are some of the principles that you are applying on your testing, actual manual tests, right? When you are writing detailed testings, it is focused on testing one thing, not multiple things. You don't want to mix and match multiple scenarios and so forth, right? So focus on a single thing. So if you look at this one, right, self-explanatory. Given I am an admin user, we are talking about the specific test, right? Specific acceptance criteria. When I create an account, then the user should receive the confirmation. So that could be part of your acceptance test that you are testing for this particular requirement. Okay, or it could be as simple as given I am an admin user, or given when I log in as admin user. If you want to write it that way, it's a plain English, right? Everybody writes differently. When I create a user account, then the user should then I'm logged into my homepage or whatever. I can access my functionality, basically. It can be as simple as that. Okay. And we'll work through some examples. What it will do. Again, when you are writing the Bing search, right? You have one simple function, Bing search page. Given I am on a Bing search, when I enter search criteria and I search, then I should see matching search results. Are there any design details? Not much, right? It's focused on the functionality. What is the functionality and what is basically what am I testing? So important part here is focused on business domain and not about software design.
Yeah.
Why is that? Because you don't have software. You are sitting with the customer. You don't know how it's going to be built.
Yeah.
So you will focus very high level. This is if I'm doing this, if I perform these actions, then I should see the outcome, basically. Okay. Now I don't see, I mean, I could have eliminated this page as well. I'm just calling it Bing search page. I don't know what it looks like right now, but that's what the customer's intent is. And I should see this outcome in there. Okay, it's a focus on business domain, not software design. Okay, so this is the important part. Right?
Given is the precondition,
Yes.
then action, then result.
Yep. So given precondition, when again, it doesn't really matter, but this is like a plain English, right? This is the plain English. Given, when, then, it's easier to understand what it is and so forth. And also, it doesn't really matter because tool will ignore all the keywords anyway.
Yeah.
It's just for our purpose, in
Yeah.
communicating with the customer.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we talked about TDD, I think ATDD process, right? Now TDD, BDD, they all are same, right? BDD and ATDD, we said it's a terminology. in the earlier. Example by design, specification by example, Agile acceptance testing, TDD, BDD. BDD and ATDD are same, but essentially the concept here is, are we supposed to test before we build it? That's the concept, right? We are writing the test before we actually have a software or before we actually do anything else. As part of the requirement process, we are creating the acceptance test right up front. Okay. Whether you do TDD, is everybody familiar with the TDD? What it is? Test-driven development, right? Generally, developers do that test-driven development. I think I have a slide here, right? So developers are doing the test-driven development. Essentially, before they write any code, they start writing actually test in the code itself. Okay, so they write the test in the code, and when they actually start create the particular function or write the code, so initially when they write the test, right, it will fail because there is no code. When they execute it, it's just it will fail. But as they build the functionality and as they implement the start implementing the right logic, that test will start passing. Same test. Okay, so that's the concept. They will write the add a test, see that test fail, write some code, pass the test, and then refactor. Basically repeat the process. If they change anything, they will repeat the process. Okay. Now developers use these are BDD tools. C unit, J unit, VB unit, N unit. Those are developer tools for writing the test-driven development. These are nothing but the framework. So if you are using Java development language, then you will use JUnit. If you are using .NET, then you will use NUnit. If you are using VB, you will use VB unit.
Don't we use the same tools like JUnit and unit for integration?
No, as a QA, you will never use this.
So what was that thing where you said it was a couple weeks ago? You said for the integration testing, we're going to use those tools.
That's a developer again, right? Integration testing. You don't do that. Integration testing is done by the developers on software lead because they want to make sure all the modules interact, right? But again, these are unit testing too. So developers will write, that's why it's called the NUnit and so forth, unit testing framework too. Essentially, it's part of your development IDE. If you are using the .NET, then you will use Visual Studio. If you are using Java, you will use Eclipse or whatever, any tool. And they come, you can have these frameworks as part of your code. And then start writing the unit test. But developers will do that. You will never do that. But essentially, they follow the same concept as you are, right? Okay. So test-driven development, everybody clear, right? I mean, conceptual. You may not do it, I mean, in real life. Okay. All right, so talk about the BDD. What is BDD, right? We said it's the same as ATDD process, similar to that. But BDD is more of a framework. It's a framework as well that you can leverage as part of the ATDD process. It's a behavior-driven development. Okay. So what it says is you write the test, BDD test in the natural language, like plain English, just like we saw it in here, right? The example acceptance test. This is more of an example of a BDD test. This is a BDD. It talks of it is focused on the behavior of the system, not on the design, right? Business domain or customer viewpoint, but not on the design. That's why it's called behavior-driven testing or behavior-driven development. So it's gives you clear understanding to what system should do from the perspective of developer and customer. Focuses on the behavioral aspect of the system, not on the design, right? Not on the software design, focuses on what needs to happen and how it needs to happen. Okay. So there are several BDD tools when you are writing the behavioral. So ATDD is a process. Okay, so let me distinguish here. ATDD is a process of going, so that includes acceptance tests as well as acceptance criteria. It's a process basically. But BDD is a tool that is used for ATDD process. BDD is a framework. Certain way of framework is what? Certain way of writing creating your code or test or whatever. Okay, so you are right. You leveraging Cucumber, RSpec, Embed, SpecFlow, JBehave. These are BDD tools for your ATDD process. Okay. Any question on the BDD framework? Okay. All right. And we'll see. So when you talk about Ruby Cucumber, right? Cucumber is a framework for BDD, which you can leverage for ATDD process and create your automation test. Okay, so Cucumber is the most popular because it works with several programming languages. Okay, there are SpecFlow and those things. They work with certain programming languages like C#. Then you can use SpecFlow as well. But this is the most popular framework for BDD. That's why you're gonna hear like Ruby Cucumber, everybody says, right? But what it is, it's again essentially these are the tools that help you write the acceptance test.
Who gave the name cucumber?
Yeah, you need to look into the history, Wikipedia, maybe
There
how they
must
came
be
up
some
with that.
history, otherwise how come that name comes up like that?
Everything. Yeah.
Yep.
There was one only some toad, I think.
Yeah, there are all kind of different things, right?
Yeah.
So I think so when you talk about Cucumber, right? So this is what we are talking about, right? That's all came to mind.
So ATDD is a process. BDD is the tool.
Tool, yes.
Got it.
Behavior driven, it's a framework.
Yeah.
Take it to it's a framework.
Yeah.
Framework,
Design.
it's a framework.
How it
So
works.
how it works, right?
Yeah.
And these are the tools you can use for BDD framework. So all these tools that I laid out here, they support BDD way of creating the acceptance test. Now, when we talk about Cucumber, yes, it's a command line tool. Okay, I'll go over shortly here. So what Cucumber is? It's a software. It's a command line tool because it's a framework, right? It's a part of the BDD framework. So it allows the automation of functional validation in easily readable format. Again, we saw that given when then, right? So it's built, you write your test in that format, and BDD, this Cucumber will take those tests and start automating those tests. Okay, so there are certain things there. When you run it, and I'll show you how just provide you some overview of that. Cucumber can be used along with Selenium, Watir, Capybara, anything that's out there. That tool works with the Selenium, Watir, WebDriver, Capybara, and bunch of other.
What is Capybara?
It's another, just like Selenium, there is another WebDriver. It's called Capybara.
And how to pronounce that one? Water?
Water,
Like normal.
W-A-T-A, yeah, normal water.
Oh, water.
Yeah. Yep. What I said, the Water is specifically for Ruby, right? Selenium is, you can use it for anything, Java, C#, whatever. Right? Capybara has a certain programming language support as well. Okay. Now, once you create those automation acceptance tests, right? Given when then, you have to organize, since it's a tool, so you organize it certain way called, and I'll show you example as well, but typically you create a plain text files. So given when then, whatever you are typing, put it in Notepad, right? You call, then you organize it as a features, okay? And then just what is scenario and steps, I'll show you quickly what those are, okay? But essentially you follow certain rules so that tool Cucumber can interpret your acceptance test and start executing the relevant code that ties to execute basically. Because what is your goal? ultimately we want to simulate this behavior and start creating our automation tests, right? That's what, but we are starting with the plain English acceptance test. How do you automate? That's where the Ruby programming comes into play. Okay, but you have to create your acceptance test in certain way, like a features. You create the feature or feature file, and then you write your acceptance test using scenarios and steps. Essentially, you are following certain set of rules to create your acceptance test, which is called Gherkin. So Gherkin is the rules for writing acceptance test. Okay, so
Like
Gherkin.
the steps you follow, that one is.
Yeah, so like you are writing given, when, then, right? That format, it's you have to follow the rules, which is called Gherkin. So you can't just write it given whatever. I mean, you have to follow certain rules, right? For any programming, if you don't follow the rules, you cannot run the program. Right? It's as simple as that. So for Cucumber, you follow the Gherkin rules to create your acceptance test or write your acceptance test. Okay, so what those rules are, let me just show you here. Since it's a Cucumber is a tool, it follows the Gherkin rule. And it includes good thing is there are only certain keywords that you need to have, basically. As I said, feature, right? Feature, I mentioned feature earlier. There's the background, scenario outline, given, when, then, and, but, star, examples. Examples is a keyword. It's not examples. Okay, it's a keyword that is used to write acceptance tests. Okay, all these keywords are used to write your acceptance test. We typically spend about 6.5 on the Cucumber framework because it's very deep. There are so many variations and on that. Okay, but I'm just giving you 1,000-foot view, what those keywords are and how it works, basically. So let's see. Let me give you the example so that you know it, right? Or what we are talking here. So I'm writing that validate admin user access feature. I'm testing that user access feature for Airflow. Okay. As an admin user, I want to log into Airflow so that I can access admin functionality. That's your acceptance criteria. Okay. So this is my acceptance criteria I gave you. Now I'm writing my acceptance test this way. So I have scenario. You always have test scenario, right? You can have multiple scenarios to test your acceptance criteria. Same rule applies with the requirement. So I can have multiple scenarios here, but this is how I can write using those keywords here. So now I'm using these keywords from here. So scenario applies. As an admin user, I can log into our front site and be able to access admin homepage. So I'm writing my scenario, some plain English. This is important. Given what actions I'm doing, what is my precondition? This is the actual code of the scenario or steps. So given I am on our front homepage, when I enter valid admin credential and I log in, then I am on admin homepage. This is how I can write them, right? Now, if I just say as a user, I want to log into Airflow so that I can access my functionality. Let's say if I change that scenario, how would this thing change? So I will have admin. This is for admin, right? But I can write the same thing for dealer, same thing for Airflow user, same thing for regional manager. So I will have 5 scenarios that tie to it. Does it make sense?
So when you're writing the picture word need to be present there.
Which word?
Itself.
Yes, those are keywords. Those are keywords. The tool will not interpret because ultimate goal is to create the automation test.
So these words need to be present when you're.
Yes. So feature is nothing but feature is nothing but what functionality you are testing, right? So that's what it says here. I don't have to put any description, but I'm for clarity. If somebody is reading, somebody else is reading, right? It says, okay, what are you testing? What are your scenarios based on? So this is my requirement. So I'm writing the requirement here, which is given to me in the user story as acceptance criteria. And then I will have list out my scenarios. The scenario keyword, this is a keyword. And I can describe it just like providing a test item. Think it as a test item. But these are my actual steps. Given, when, then, and all those.
So it's like the SQL syntax, like you have to put those words.
Yes, yes, anything that you deal with, yes.
Yeah.
Anything that you deal with, you will have to follow the syntax.
So, how does the feature and the scenario tie together? Like, how do you get the scenario?
Yeah, so every feature, so every requirement, you will have multiple scenarios, right? If you are talking about Outflow, basically every requirement you are creating multiple scenario tree. That's what essentially these scenarios are. For every lift, you will have one scenario tied to it.
So you can add like that.
Yeah, I mean, you can add multiple scenarios. So as I said here, if I change this acceptance criteria to as a just remove the user, remove the admin.
So we need to write it in given way.
Yep, given when, yep, that's exactly.
So you have to write down the feature again, then.
Yep.
Right?
Yep,
Again,
not the feature, not the feature.
only the
Feature is only
scenario.
once in the file. In the file, so this is, imagine you are writing in a notepad, this particular tab. Okay, and the notepad you will start with the feature, what is my acceptance criteria, you can describe it. You don't have to, but it's good to put the more details in. What is your scenario? What are the scenarios are based on, right? Then you will have first scenario, which is nothing but your lift. Then you have a second scenario, which is again another lift you are testing, third thing, fourth thing, fifth thing. Okay, I'm just trying to compare what you did versus how it's different with the Cucumber and ATDD process. It's the same. You are, yeah, this is the kind of similar to a test case, but remember, test case you write it with more design details in mind. I click on this, I go to homepage, I here, you don't see any of this. This is more abstract, right? This is more of a from user standpoint. This is how my UAT test case will look like. Okay, this is typically user will do testing like this. It's more like a UAT test case, user acceptance test case. Okay, it's little bit different, little bit zoom out. You zoom out from the design standpoint, and then you basically. I'm not saying how I'm going to do any of these things because I don't know how the system will do.
Perhaps when you're adding more scenarios like leaves,
Mhm.
so should we mention like scenario one, scenario
No,
two?
no, tool will not
you can't-
interpret. So tool, if you want to automate this task, you have to follow the rules.
Same. Okay.
Yep.
So we write on the notepad this one. is it?
Yeah, you just like open a notepad simply and start typing if you want. Okay, and then later on you can use it. I'll show you the actual tool that we use in the real life. That's where you create your automation tests, like Cucumber scenarios and so forth, so that you can easily automate.
Oh, so this is basically like a program.
What is it?
This is programming basically.
No, it's not programming, right? This is plain English, right? It's a Gherkin set of rules you are following for your
Yeah.
Cucumber test.
Is to put it into a tool.
Yeah. And then you can start automating your tests later on. It's easy.
Yeah.
I mean, you can write it in Notepad or you can write it in Azure DevOps as well, right? You can simply put it as part of the description. Hey, these are my acceptance tests. You cannot write it in the steps, your test case, because test case is used for manual testing. Those are different formats.
Now we have
On
to
this one,
detail.
on this one, we don't have to do it.
So Harshal, I have one question. Yeah, so we have one user story, suppose, and we have 5 acceptance criteria assigned to that user story.
Yep.
For that, in that scenario, so are we going to create the scenarios for each acceptance criteria for the same user story?
That is correct.
Yes.
That's exactly what it is. Yep. So in the top, the feature, you will say whatever you want, right? Here, validate admin user access, but this is your acceptance criteria. Typically, you want to document, right, in your feature file. This is generally it's called a feature file in the automation world. Okay, and then you start with the feature, put your acceptance criteria, and you will have multiple scenarios. Then you will have a second feature file. Put a second scenario in there, put all the relevant put the second acceptance criteria, and have all the relevant scenarios at the bottom. Now, if you have just 3 criteria or something, you can just simply put all the scenarios together here. There is no hard and fast rule. How you want to organize it, it's up to you. You can create a one feature file, put all the scenarios for all acceptance criteria in a single file, it will still work fine. Okay, it's up to you how you want to organize it. But typically what we do is one acceptance criteria, if there are multiple scenarios, we separate it out into different files. Okay.
But if you have multi scenarios, then the features should be the same one, like the tree and the leaf, right?
No, you can, I mean, you are writing different test cases, right? Ultimate goal is to document the scenarios, right? And automate those things. So it doesn't matter really how you organize it. And let me
Okay,
move a little bit forward.
practically, then
Yep, it makes sense. It's not a rocket science, okay?
Yeah.
This thing. But before we do that, right? Let's do one thing. Don't worry about how you organize it. We'll come back to that. But let's see if you guys can write the scenarios for this one. So this is your classwork, okay? Not homework. So let me just use plain piece of paper and notepad, right? You can what the rules we talked about. Let's see if you guys can write it. And online folks, you can write the same one. So spend maybe like 15-20 minutes, right? If you want to work in the team, which is fine, or it works right individually and review others, it is okay. Is everybody good online? Any question, anybody on this activity?
Might want to turn off the presenter view so this slide comes bigger.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's on 3 dots and then it'll be a hide presenter view.
Gotcha.
Yep, there you go. Now it's big enough.
Yeah. So I expect you guys to write it, put an effort, right? If you don't write it, I mean, you will forget because nobody will remember anything. It's okay if it's wrong, okay? Whatever you guys think, whatever you understood, let's do what.
It's like a story you're writing.
It's a English, right?
Yeah, how you're talking, it's like
Yeah, that's how it is. Yep, that's how it is.
I can imagine.
So writing is giving one their format.
Yeah. To use that format, okay? That's the goal. And if you think of more scenarios, add your scenario. I just added, give you example, for example, 2 scenarios here.
Yeah.
You have to write the feature also, then write.
I think feature you can ignore, but focus on the scenarios, right? Feature keyword, you don't have to use it, but to organize your scenarios, right?
Okay.
That's the important part.
I write writing.
It's a nicely description about what you are going to
Exactly.
do, right? Completely. The first one, first one is done. The second step is super user. I said it's going to search dealer by dealer name. So, okay. So what do you do? For search, you have to do another one. So for the insert one, let's see also scenarios, right? We are doing scenarios only. Scenarios are little bit.
Yeah, 5-year conference, if you don't have the right to run it.
All right, anybody online wants to go ahead with the, I think first one is, I already gave you answer, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it shouldn't be any different than what you have here, right? This is the first one, but you are just changing from admin to the dealer.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so this is exactly what you should have, something similar. Okay, so I'm gonna skip that.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll start with the second one. So in the second one, I gave you 2 scenarios, but if you think of third one, do that. If you have it, if not, that's fine. Okay, so anybody wants to go ahead and see or tell me, maybe let's do as a class exercise. Yes, Bonaventure.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Okay,
The question I was asking my groups, for the alpha run, that one we did before.
yeah,
This one we have one here is a requirement. So.
yes, acceptance criteria is part of the requirement. Yes, it or story. Yep, that's correct.
So, here in Cucumber is a scenario, right?
No, Cucumber is a tool for automation test. You are writing this Gherkin test, acceptance test, so that you can automate later on.
Now we are learning the syntax, how to write it.
How to write it, how to write acceptance test. That's what you are doing here in this particular process. Don't think about Cucumber or anything, okay? Just say, can I write acceptance test using the Gherkin's, following the Gherkin syntax? That's what it is. Okay.
You can go ahead and start.
Okay, so anybody wants to take a stab at it, see what you guys have. Anybody wants to read there? Okay, go ahead.
So I came up with the second one, right?
Okay, Eric, hold on a second. Let me ask somebody online, I think. Go ahead, Sasmita, is that you?
Okay, so it should be like, for me, it should be like given, I'm a super user homepage
Here you
and
have given, I am on super user.
home page and search.
Okay, and search.
Yeah. When I enter exact dealer and search, then I should see the dealer detail and modify the field for dealers.
Okay, and search. Then what is your then condition?
Then I should see the dealer details and modify field for the dealers.
Dealer details and
Modify
be
fields.
able to modify. That means
Yes.
put it in plain English, right? And
Okay, yes.
modify dealer.
Modify the dealer details. Yeah.
Okay, that's what you have. Okay. Anybody else has the same thing differently? Same scenario, but differently.
Ours is a little slightly different.
Okay. Anybody has anything different? Conceptually, it should be similar, but anything different.
We just put the full
Instead of-
name. that's-
Full name and password.
Yeah, exact name.
So instead of exact dealer, can you guys read your sentence? One of you.
When I given I'm on super user homepage,
Okay.
when I enter dealer full name
Dealer full name. Okay.
and I search,
Okay.
then I can access dealer information
Then I can access. Okay.
and modify dealer information.
Okay. So you have kind of like a similar,
Yeah.
except that you have now. Sasmita, why I don't know why you have search in the first given, right? Because that's not the action you are doing, right?
So what I thought of is it that whenever the super user in the home page, he should have a search button. When he click on the search button, he should be into one page where a lot of dealer will be there, dealer things will be there. So he will be selecting one dealer, then again he will be doing the search, and that particular search is done for a particular dealer. So that came in my mind.
Right. So, but your precondition is includes the search step, which I don't think that's what you expect, right? When you log in or when you are on user homepage,
Mhm.
I think what you should say here, and I access dealer search. Because you don't, or something like that, right? You
Okay, dealer
don't
search.
click action, you don't go to the search. I think what you are trying to say is I need to go to the search.
Yes,
access
a
my
search
search.
button. Yes, the functionality should be there. You know, the search functionality should be there.
Okay,
Once the
okay.
search functionality is there, then we
Gotcha.
have to get into another
Right,
page.
right. So you can write it this way, right? And I access dealer search.
Yes.
Instead of saying I search, basically dealer,
Function.
right?
Yes,
It just makes it a little bit more clear. That's all.
more true.
So this one will take you to whatever page or whatever function that you need to be. Then once you are there on the dealer search, then you can say, okay, I enter exact dealer or exact dealer name or dealer full name, whatever, right? Whatever
Yes.
English language you guys are using. And I search, then I should see dealer details and able to modify dealer information.
Yes.
Right? So I mean, it's perfectly fine. Okay, if you have something similar language, it is perfectly okay. Everybody writes differently. You can break down the steps here. If you use and, A and D. So this is again a keyword case sensitive. If you use and,
We have to
it treats as a single step.
Okay.
Okay, if you use A and D, it's a 2 steps you are performing, which is perfectly fine if you have something like this. Okay. So this cucumber, the Gherkin is a case sensitive. You have to have exact. So this end and this end is different. Okay. So tool will not interpret properly.
Space before and.
No, there is no space, so it doesn't really matter.
Oh.
Yeah, you can have everything, something like this. Just for the readability, right? You can do something like this, I mean, which is fine. If somebody is reading your file.
So A will be uppercase.
Yeah, A needs to be uppercase because that's what one of the keywords, okay? So your keyword is N. No, it doesn't have to be next line. If it's the same line, it tool will say, okay, it's a separate sentence.
So Harshal, I have one question. Like depending on our acceptance test, are the developer are going to make the development? Because now here I made 3 pages for this. Are the development going to follow my process, or it is being defined by the BAs or the product owner?
Developer follow your process. You mean what process? Are you talking about design?
Yes, like I said, no, I thought of getting 3 pages here, but some of them have only 2 pages of interaction.
Yeah,
So how the
uh,
developer is going to,
yeah, so developer will not look at your test case. Okay, this is for you to automate, create your automation test. Okay, and whatever you have, it really doesn't matter. Okay, how many steps you have, because you can ignore when you write the actual test, create the automation test, you can create whatever you want. Even if it says this exact dealer, access dealer search, if it takes you 2 steps to get to the dealer search, then you can build that in your automation test.
It depends on the system is taking.
Right. So once the design is there, and I'll go through that, what you need to do next, right? You haven't learned what is next.
Yeah,
That's
so
for
if
you.
we do a mistake, I mean, we'll only correct it, I think, because that will not take, right?
There is no correction here. You can use this,
Yeah.
even if the software is built completely differently, you can still create your automation steps
Okay.
and automation, because it's little bit different. Yeah, I'll show you that next, what it looks like
Yeah.
end to end,
Definitely.
so that it makes sense to you. Okay, but developer will not look at your test case
Yeah.
for design. No, that's not how it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
They're supposed to develop design. You are part of the design discussion, but they will not say, yeah, your test case is, they will not follow your
Yeah.
test case.
That's true.
Okay.
and we can modify this acceptance test anytime, whenever we want.
Yeah, you can modify it,
Increase
but you don't need to. Because what you're gonna do is you will have these scenarios, you're gonna sit down with the customer, with the team, and say, oh, is that what you mean by acceptance criteria? Do you think these tests are valid tests? And customer will approve your test. This is how I see working, basically.
Okay.
It's a communicating with the customer. This is how the functionality should work, something similar.
But if the system is taking it, then nobody is going to question you, right?
System,
Like, if this is correct and we are doing automation,
yeah.
if it's going through, then.
Yeah,
nobody-
if your automation test is
Yeah.
passed, and you will make it, basically it will work.
Yeah.
But here, what thing is missing is, one thing, I don't see it here. It needs to be precise, like specification by example comes in the picture.
Oh.
So whatever your actual test data is not there. What I mean to say is,
Mhm.
you can really specify here. When I say exact dealer name as Germain Toyota,
Oh.
okay? Then and I search where then I shall see German Toyota details.
Yeah.
Oh, this one, we don't really need to have a session for the test data.
Yeah, because this is the test case, right? So you need to have some test data. This is called specification by example. Your acceptance test includes actual test data as well. And now if you have this, then customers say, yeah, okay, this is what I mean. When I search for German Toyota, then I should see German Toyota details and able to modify German Toyota information. You can just say something like that. Okay, because this makes it more clear, right? So make sure you include as much as test data as you want. Now, do you really care about super user? You don't, because that you don't know what logins you will have and all those things. But here you can certainly have specific example in the steps for this scenario. Okay. Okay, so this is scenario 1, right? So how would your second scenario would change? So our second partial match, right? So here again you have same step, but when you just say here GER, then I shall see all the dealers matching with the GER, starting or matching, whatever based on the criteria. matching with the GER.
And it can be anywhere, right? Starting, middle.
Yeah, it's a partial, right?
partial.
So again, that's a clarification point. So you are sitting with the customer, right? And customer says, no, it has to be starting or whatever. Then your user story will have additional acceptance criteria. And they will say starting only, or they will revise the acceptance
So
criteria.
do we have to add a step like which German criteria? No, we don't have to add anything for that.
No, because you don't know how the system they will build it, right? All you are saying, hey, if I do search with GER, I should see all the matching GER, right? That's all. Right? So this one, you can end it right there on this particular one. Okay. All right, so let's move on to the next one. All right, who wants to read the lender one? Okay, go ahead, Ramya.
As a lender, given I'm on Arflon homepage, when I enter valid lender credential.
Okay, given I am on our loan homepage,
When
Okay.
I enter valid lender credential.
okay,
We can put some lender name over there.
what you have right now. Let's see what you have right now,
And I log in,
and I log in.
then I am on lender homepage
Okay,
as Chase and access assigned application ID and change the status of credit application from from pending to approved.
anything?
This is what I do.
Okay, so here a couple of things. I think you guys assume that there will be application ID, there will be a pending status, all those things, right? So this is more, if you are writing a test case, yes, you need to have all these details in your normal test case, manual test case. You should avoid all those things here. Okay. Okay, anybody else has it? Let me see anybody else online or here. Yes, go ahead, Eric.
Given that I am on Upload page,
Okay, given I am on our loan page,
when I enter valid lender credentials,
lender credentials,
I'm logged in as a lender. And I'm logged in as a lender,
and I log in as a lender.
then I'm able to approve or reject my application.
Approve or reject credit application.
Yes.
Okay. So again, this one, let's talk about this one, what you have. First of all, I don't know which action I'm taking. You need to think in the scenarios, right? How many scenarios I should have to meet this criteria? Third one. If you are testing, right? How many scenarios would you have? Four, right? So you should have 4 different scenarios. If you are saying 4, you should have 4 different scenarios, first of all. What are those 4? Pending. Okay. Why would you have pending here? Because it says
Already pending.
Approved, then
Check.
check. Decline.
I mean, it's up to you, right? I mean, how many scenarios you would have, but here I can think it is as a 2 scenarios, whether either you are approving or rejecting, right?
Pending, you can do it. because it's already
So
there.
the rule here is those scenarios needs to be written independently in those formats, right? So what you have here is you combine both of them, because I don't know what I'm trying to prove here at the end.
Yeah.
Okay, so here you can change it. I'm able to approve credit application. This would be my one scenario. Okay, this is a scenario. And then I could have a second scenario with the reject. Now again, I would change a little bit here. Let me ask anybody. Anybody has anything different? So we are okay with two scenarios here. Okay, go ahead.
So given I'm in lender homepage, when I select the credit application and update credit application, then I should able to approve the credit application.
Okay, hang on. What was that? When
Given
and
I'm in a lender homepage,
on lender homepage. Okay, not our loan. Okay.
because this is lender, right? As a
When
lender.
I select credit application and what was that?
And update, that might be some kind of button to update for that particular credit application.
And update credit application.
Yes, then I should be able to, approve the credit application. Like,
So when you say and approve credit application, right? That's what you want to say, right?
no, and update the credit application.
Again, we're talking about design here, right? So you need to really extract out of the design process. You can simply say here, when I select credit application and approve credit application, then credit application is approved. I don't know what will happen, right? But credit application is approved.
Yes.
Past 1 month, so much we could do.
So much thinking in that.
We only thinking in that.
Not
It will take
everything is
time.
complete.
We just learn, so it will take time.
Right? So here, there is no design details, right? I mean, it just simply says, I'm on lender homepage, I do some action on credit application, and I should be able to approve it, basically. If I take an approve application, the credit application is approved. It doesn't matter what happens with that. That's something, once the design is there, you can change your, create your test case tabs and other things. Okay, same thing, you can write something similar for reject, right? So you already have reject here, and so forth. Again, intent is look at from the customer viewpoint without any design details, right? And so that you can write your Gherkin test case. I'm not saying anything is wrong, okay? You can still automate whatever you created. If I go back to the test case here, not this one. Which one was it? Yeah, if you put design details, then you can still automate the test case, but that's not what customer. Yeah, because that's not what we have, right? We don't have design, so I mean, you have to go back and revise your test case later on, otherwise. Because they may not have super user homepage, who knows, whatever, basically, right?
Yeah.
If you put design details, that means it's gonna cause issue. You have to refactor your test case. Okay. All right, any question on this process? Okay, you are not perfect, right? Nobody's perfect. You will have to, but think it in that terms.
So actually what is happening, this kind of work is more happening or our old style?
No, both are still there. If you are working on the Agile projects, yes, you will still create manual test cases. You will write this type of test acceptance tests as well, both together. And if the automation is there, then you will automate this test only. You cannot automate the other ones. Yeah, you have to wear different. That's correct. So you will end up using Cucumber, this type of Gherkin. Again, it varies, depends on the company. They expect you to write it, yeah, you should be able to write it. So next thing.
Yeah, thank you for telling us, because otherwise we'll be thinking in the same way.
No, but that part, you have to think that way, okay? I mean,
That is
even
the
if you are
main part.
writing this, right, you are still thinking in terms of, okay, how do I break down the requirements? What are the different ways and so forth?
But here I saw it's completely particular, like what you're doing.
Yeah,
Go
to
for
the
it.
point.
Don't
Because you are
write the side
writing from the user standpoint. This is what you are writing from the UAT test case standpoint. If you look at the UAT test case, there will be something little bit abstract. You will not have much details from the business process standpoint. Yeah.
Whatever you are doing.
Interesting.
This is also.
Yeah. it will be good. I can-
But need practice.
All right. So more practice, right? More homework for you guys. You can create, pick the requirements that you have and write the Cucumber test case.
Then we are loaded with work.
First of all, the project is not going this way.
Well, at least you can pick 3 or 4 requirements, not everything, right? And come up with the test case.
You know what's happening when you go home? Okay, I want to do this and we can write down, but oh my God, there is a pile of works here. I think.
I'm sure you guys can handle it. All right, so let's move on. So let me talk about the backend process, what really happens, right? Okay, so Cucumber, right? So how Cucumber works, let me give you some idea about it. So whatever you wrote, right? It's a command line tool. And you write your Gherkin scenario in the text files, which are typically called feature files. So one feature, multiple scenarios, right? That's how you are going to organize it. Now, what is step definition on steps, right? So we wrote here, so individually, this is one step given. This is second step. This is third step. This is fourth step. So I have 4 steps in my scenario. That's what it's called. So you will always have steps. And you will have corresponding step definitions. Okay, so I'll show you what it looks like, step definition. So with every step you will have a step definition, which converts the business readable language of step into Ruby code. So that's where the programming starts. Okay, for the backend. So you write in the plain English that those are steps. Every step you will hook it up with the Ruby code, which is called step definition, and it can trigger the automation from there. Okay. So generally, this is the structure will look like. You will have features, scenarios. That's how you are organizing, right? Feature, scenario, and steps. This is generally the business facing. In the plain English, these are business facing, meaning business can understand and those things. Step definition, support code, automation libraries, and the system hookup, the web drivers and all those things, those are technology facing. That requires Ruby programming knowledge.
So the step definition.
The one we just did, that stays in the business. phase.
That's the business facing, yeah, because you haven't coded anything, right? You just write the plain English type of thing. That's a feature, scenario, and step. Now there are a lot of variations there. Okay, a lot of variations when you actually write it. There are a lot of keywords, right? We talked about several keywords here. There are variations. Okay, examples, background, scenario, outline. As I said, I mean, it takes almost like a full session, basically a couple of sessions to understand all these variations. But this one will give you at least some basics about it, how you can write the scenarios and so forth. Okay.
So before we proceed, can I ask?
What is it?
Can I ask something?
Yes, go ahead.
So, when we just write down the steps and scenarios. So my question is, when I was writing, so there will be only one when, right?
One.
Then and we can add more. and
Given when then, yeah. So, but there are examples, keyword, background, scenario, background, keyword, scenario, outline keywords. You can use them for automation test. So there are variations there. You can write the test, what you learn, what you have done just now, basically. But when you are creating automation test, you're gonna use other keywords.
Other keywords. Okay.
Okay, but for now, I mean, business facing, technology facing requires Ruby programming or Java programming or whatever programming. But this part doesn't change.
Okay.
The backend part depends on the programming language, you will write it differently. I don't think you guys can see it properly, but you can check in your diagram, right? So every scenario will have step definition tied to it and then Ruby code that gets executed. Okay. And you have a digital format as well for this PowerPoint slide, so take a look at it. Okay. Essentially, it's just a different view of what you have here. Okay, like how you link steps to the step definition and so forth. Now, what is the difference between step definition and step?
Yeah.
So we write step is Gherkin, right? Plain English. Step definition is Ruby code. And it links, it triggers a Ruby code when the tool runs, like a Cucumber or something. It knows which code to execute by looking at the step definition. This is what it looks like. So how does it match? So it uses the regular expressions. I don't know any of you know the regular expression, but it's the pattern matching. So it looks at the step and then tries to match it up with the step definition. So if I have the step like this, given I'm logged in as a admin, so you will have a matching step definition, something like this. And then your Ruby code goes in here, in between. Okay, so again, as I said, this is again a Ruby code, Ruby programming, given this syntax is Ruby programming. But the tool will link it up, this particular line, with the Ruby program in the backend. And then it will do a lot more code execution. I'm just giving you an idea about how it links up. Okay, that's all. You don't have to memorize any of these things and so forth. Now, as I said, I mean, it's Ruby programming, right? It's Ruby is a programming language, so you need to learn in order to do additional automation for that. Now, why Ruby and Cucumber? Cucumber works with other programming, but Ruby programming is easier to pick up syntax-wise. Like if you, I don't know if you ever seen Java syntax, it's a complex. You have to have parentheses, all kind of things, semicolons. Ruby is a lot more simpler than Java. And I guess that's why a lot of companies, it goes like a Ruby Cucumber together.
Yeah.
I guess, because most of the companies use Ruby with Cucumber. Okay. Now there is a concept called gems. I mean, again, these are programming libraries. They are not diamonds or anything like a programming libraries. Okay. But for an automation tester, yes, those are the ones you will use. And how to use it and all those things, I'm not going to cover here, details. Yeah.
Because of the word gems, they put Ruby over there.
Yeah, that's right. So Ruby and gems, so they are kind of like a. Yeah. Yep. So we talked about Cucumber, right? As a BDD framework, which links up the step between step and step definition, right? We talked about Ruby programming. Now, where the Selenium and Watir comes in, right? So they are the actually web drivers. Selenium and Watir both are web drivers. Web drivers are nothing but a tool which drives a browser natively as a user. So it, in order to interact with the web browser, like Chrome, you need Selenium or Watir. Okay. So Watir, I think I already told you that they both support multiple browsers. Because essentially what happens in the automation, you write your automation test, when you execute it, you open a browser window, then you interact with the browser window. Interact meaning go to the certain page and then input data and click on something and be done with it. Verify the result. If you want to do that, Ruby programming is not enough. You need Selenium or Watir to interact with the browser. Okay, and you can write Ruby code to trigger Selenium drivers or Watir driver and interact with the elements on the page. Okay, so you can click on it and so forth. Okay, again, interact with the HTML of the application. This web driver will read the will allow you to interact with the controls on the page and so forth. So I think we already know about web page, but this drivers will allow you to interact. That's what essentially this one does. And there is a specific syntax you follow. Okay. And I'm not going to cover details because here it's more like a programming code. But here I just put some examples here. How do you open a new browser into Ruby programming? How do you go to the URL? How do you input something in the text box? Okay. If you look at your Groovy script, it's very similar. It needs to find the control. Once it opens the browser, then you have to specify certain things. Okay, how do I find the control? So you specify the ID of the control. Remember, ID is a unique, right? You have certain HTML properties. Typically, you will use ID, but you can use CSS or you can use other selectors to find the control and make some action on it. Here, set or click, right? Those are the two things that you can do. So here I'm setting the text high all into this field text, some type of ID, some type of field called text in there. Okay, so that's how it works. Again, there are various controls, so every control will have its own. How do you get handle on the control and work through it? Okay, so let me just quickly show you what it looks like in the tool. Okay, so that you understand how it fits together.
The Ruby, Cucumber, Selenium, Watir, they all goes together.
Yes, they all go together. You cannot use just Ruby to build your automation test, but in order to write the automation test, you need to learn Ruby programming as well.
That means you need to have all.
Yes, that's
four
correct. That's correct.
knowledge
Yep,
about
yep,
that.
that is right. So
Yeah.
typically the tool used is called JetBrains RubyMine. Just like Visual Studio is a development tool for .NET, Eclipse is for Java, there are a bunch of other tools. Generally, most of the companies use RubyMine to build your automation test. Okay, RubyMine is the tool. So I'm going to open that up. For Catalan, you had Catalan Studio. This one is a RubyMine. And as I said, tool has certain projects, right? And it has certain features and starts with the feature. And this is my automation test for load calculator I have. Okay, so you always start by writing your scenario and the feature. So this is for load calculator. And I have positive load calculator scenario, right? Given I am on loan calculator page, when I enter 1,000 as loan amount and I calculate, I shall see 30 as monthly payment. This is my scenario, right? Everybody understands this part, right? It's pretty straightforward.
Harshal, we are not able to see the screen.
Oh,
Like,
okay, give me a second. All right. Okay, can you see it now? Can everybody confirm?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes, go ahead and give me a second. Okay, so let me start over. Okay, so the tool that I was talking about is JetBrains RubyMine, right? So I'm just opening up that tool. Again, there is a 30-day trial license with this tool. It's a nominal cost, I think. It's yearly is about $60 or $70 for this Visual Studio, RubyMine IDE. IDE is not free, but Selenium, Ruby, all those things are free. So all you pay is $70 to get the license where you can develop this tool, which is compared to $2,000 per license for other thing per person. So, which is not bad. Yep, for Catalan or UFT or anything that's a crazy amount, you will pay. Anyway, so typically, this is my scenario here. I have one feature file, and I created one positive load calculation scenario. Now I can have a second scenario as well. Okay, if I'm writing a negative scenario or some other scenario. Okay, so but this is for example. All right, so where do I write it? So this is the folder I created called features. And within that, I have my load calculator.feature file. That's how I'm organizing. I have login feature file. I could have 50 or 500 different feature files for depending on how many scenarios and what I'm testing. Okay, you can generally create the folders within folders, just like Windows. You have directory structure, you can organize your test. But that's not important. The important part is, okay, this is my feature file, and this is how it will do. Now, how does it know what to execute, right? Or how the tool works is, I will have step definitions. So for every step, I will have a matching Ruby step definitions. So where do I go and see the code? So I see in the step definitions folder, I will see load calculator. This is the file I created, okay? As a QA tester, automation tester. So I will create this something similar. And I see I have given an end statement. This is what I showed you earlier, something similar to what I have. Again, this is a Ruby code here at this point. Okay, so given, then I'm putting some instruction, visit Airflow, log in with this dealer, you log in password, go to the load calculator, and so forth. So I'm providing more instructions here. Okay, now what these things are, again, Ruby is an object-oriented programming. So as a Ruby Cucumber Selenium framework, you will use another framework or another way of writing your automation, which is called Page Objects Framework. Okay, and so this one is using a certain way, that particular framework. So you create the objects based on the object-oriented programming and organize your tests. Again, as I said, it's a lot more programming. So there is additional programming that I have done. What I'm doing here is actually opening the browser, and then I'm clicking on basically certain thing. So tool like a catalog, everything was generated for you.
Yeah.
Here, you are writing everything from scratch. Okay. There is a good thing and bad thing. It gives you a lot more flexibility because you have full control over how you want to build your automation test. In the tool like Catalan, you don't have full control. Whatever it records or whatever that's what you can do. You can't do much with those tools. But here you can actually create whatever program or however you want to create your automation test. Essentially, it does the same thing. So if I want to execute the test that I wrote, this particular one, what I can do is I can right click on the feature file and say run the feature or run the automation test, and it will start running the test. What is supposed to do? Supposed to open a browser, go to the Airflow, and then check those values, right? So here it triggered the browser window, triggered another browser window. So it goes here, G-trading, follow the same things. Essentially, it's doing the same thing. And then it will tell you what test pass, it says test pass. So if I come here in the run, I will see test results, it says green arrow for that. Okay, exactly same thing, right? But here you have to build everything from scratch. And why is that? It's free. That's why companies invest here, not over there, right? You pay for the convenience. You want to fly first class, you pay additional money, right? That's all the differences. But yeah, so that's the difference. That's correct, but again, companies look at the cost. If they have 50 developers, 50 automation tester, like nationwide has like 400 plus. If they start paying $2,000 or $3,000 for every developer, it's gonna cost them 200,000 just for the license every year. Versus if they invest here, they will end up paying maybe $5,000 for the whole development license and so forth. So that's a drawback. But here, these tools are much more powerful and much more flexible. Okay, and so forth.
You can go to the detail.
Yeah, but here you need to understand how to get handle of the what are the objects on the browser, how do you get handle on it, and how do you interact with them. That's what essentially this tool allows you to build. Okay, so you write certain logic here. You also come up right with the additional logic. Here I'm handling these are IDs. So you deal with the actual build everything from scratch. How do you verify? This is how you can verify, and so forth. Again, I'm not going to bore you with the technical details here, but I'm just wanting to show you quickly what it looks like, so that it gives you some more idea about what it is and so forth. Any question? What we discussed so far?
I would say, can you see it again?
What is it?
When you write down the scenarios and you can you do it again and run the test? I have to do it one more time.
I have to create the whole test from scratch. If that's what you mean here. So what I can do is I can change the amount here, 60.
Yeah.
Right. And let me put 2,000. Okay. So I'm just changing the amount. I can do that because this becomes this values I'm writing here. It will feed to my automation tests. So there are arguments, variables, parameters. It's a programming, right? So that's what it will come in the picture. Generally, when you're writing some programming, right, it takes about 4 hours, 2 to 4 hours to create the automation test, basically. Because you want to make sure everything flows through end to end. You have to create the proper objects in the back end and so forth. Right, so it just went very quickly. I mean, I blink of an eye. But if you have to write here, another scenario, right? So I can simply write this negative loan calculation.
Put a negative value.
Let me put it in a different feature file. So let me go and create a new feature file. Okay, so I'm saying it's just a new file. Simply, let's see, login scenario. Or what you guys want to see?
Negative.
Okay.
Loan calculator negative one.
Negative scenario.
So here is feature.
Dot feature. So I'm giving extension as dot feature. Okay, so here I have a feature dot feature file. So again, I will have feature negative scenario, negative. Okay, scenario. There are the tools are nice. It will give you some keywords. That's why they are increase the productivity for you. Okay, so it gives you all those things. So you just select it, and then I will have given. So this one, given I am logged in as a dealer, user, when I access loan calculator. And I enter, what is that you want to enter? Negative minus 10 as a loan amount. and I calculate, then I shall see error message. Now, remember, you don't have error message defined yet. This is happening very beginning, right? So you don't know what it is. Now the tool will tell you, these are the steps. You don't have any step, basically anything tied to it. Okay, it says you need a matching step definition. That's why these are highlighted. Okay, and you can create the step definition right from here. Create step definition, right? The tool will allow you to hook up everything together. But the coding part, you might have to create it separately. So I can say create new file, and I'll say negative loan calc .rb. Okay, because it's a Ruby file. And I'll say create. So now my step definition is created for this one. Okay, and I can say P means print in the Ruby. So I'm printing something, basically. Okay, I can do that. So same way I can create other steps. And I can say create all. See, it will allows me to create everything. So all my step definitions are created. Again, I can say one. So at least you can see where it's going. Okay, so now when I run this test, I'm expecting SDFC 1, 2, and 3 printed out on the screen. Even though I don't have hooked up with the I haven't hooked up with the browser anything yet. Okay, so if I run this, if everything is hooked up properly, I should see something different here. So I see SDFC and there's something missing, basically, because the arguments are missing. I have not hooked up basically values properly. Because this argument, again, that is part of your process. Okay, so this one, if you are sending the values as argument, negative 1000 as argument, then you have to supply argument, basically values and so forth. So again, as I said, this takes about 2 to 4 hours to build a one automation test. You make sure you hook up everything, link it up with the browser code and so forth. But this is the process. You write every step. Let me just remove this one argument here. See if I can just run it for your purpose. Now I can see 2 printed out here. So what it does is it executes first step, then it called this step, and I see I printed 2 here. Then it failed on something else, basically, as well. Okay, so that's a debugging process. What are programming? Typically, that's called debugging. You debug through and fix the steps and hook up properly everything.
So for debugging, where you have to go?
No, you are debugging right in the tool. Yeah.
Over there? Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, you interpret, you look at it. Well, what's the error? You say, okay, this line is getting error, so you will take a look at that. You fix that line of code and move it. Okay. Anyway, so that's just like a quick overview of what those technologies looks like as part of your this frameworks, basically. Okay. As I said, you have to learn Ruby programming. Without that, you cannot create Ruby Cucumber automation test. Any question?
So, should we pick it up on WB School?
This one you cannot. They don't have this. I don't think anybody has it. For
As a QA, do we need to?
I mean, this is optional. Okay, this is not that you need it. As long as you know certain tools, you are fine as well. Again, depending on the company, they will ask you to go through this or not. It's a personal choice. Okay. You may be fine depending on your background if you go out in the market, which is okay as well. Okay. Certain companies, they ask for certain automation things, and if you have certain things on the resume, then it will help you. But you can still go without it. Okay, I have seen both things.
If we go to manual, I don't have to.
Yeah, this is not for everybody. Okay, let me put it that way. Technology side of things, programming is not for everybody. If you're really interested in picking this up, then only it makes sense. But if you pick up one programming language, you can pick up other things very quickly. Because here you are building everything from scratch. So you will understand the internals, how the actual automation works. So let's say some new tool comes up tomorrow, you understand how page interaction works and everything and what it is. So you can pick up anything in the future.
Then it will be easy to pick up.
Yeah, it's very easy to pick up. It becomes natural because you know actually how the actually internal thing works. Okay.
But for manual, it's not a part of it. But if you're going to automation, then.
Yes. Yep, that is correct. I mean, you have to pick up either Catalan or some tool for automation because generally they prefer you have at least something on the resume for the automation. And that's the whole reason we teach you the Catalan at least something, one tool, so you understand certain part of it, what it takes to automate.
So in the automation class, we're going to learn like more about this.
Yeah, automation class is strictly focused on this. We don't teach anything basics.
When is that? When is the automation?
That is in November, middle of November.
So after this analyst, the other one is.
Yeah, business analyst, we are still thinking about the dates wise because that might get pushed out a little bit, but I'll see. We haven't made a decision yet. Yeah. But anyway, let's see if you guys have any question on this thing. Okay. All right, if no question, then I think this is kind of like a last step that I wanted to have it for this Ruby Cucumber sort of things. So we can maybe take a 5 minutes break. Dilip, you there?
I'm here.
Okay, gotcha.
You want to take a
Thanks.
5-minute break and then talk through it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll take 5 minutes break and we'll regroup. So 11:24, 11:30. Okay.
Yep.
This